the life force of your bond. A power like life itself, unseen for generations. A Dyad in the Force.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Dyad in the Force, episode 134, where we're going to be talking about Rise of the Red Blade by Delilah S. Dawson. We are joined by two very special guests today. Choco, why don't you talk to him?
Hello, good people. Now it's been a while since we've had either on. But yeah, we can go ahead and have you guys introduce yourselves, say where we can find your amazing content, and yeah, just let us know. There's gonna be a book-driven discussion. So let us know what your favorite Star Wars book is, and why. And if it's Red Blade, let us know that, and not why. We'll save that for later. But why don't we go to you first, Nat?
Wow.
Sorry to put you on the spot. But...
Favorite Star Wars book? Wow. Okay, so Natasha here. I'm so excited to be back. You can find me on the Bird app. I am still calling it Twitter, as long as humanly possible. At NKNAPPER. And then you can find me on what do I want to say? TikTok. Let's just say I'll promote TikTok. You can find me on TikTok at NMKNAPP. And yeah, I talk about Star Wars things right now. I'm mostly talking about the books and non-movie related content in the Star Wars universe. And then just like all other kinds of, pop culture things. And yeah, I think for now that's all I'll promote. But excited to be here and excited to make some more connections.
Awesome. There's AJ. Now back to the chat. Let's catch up with the chat. I'm just kidding, AJ.
Honestly, it's fine. I get it.
I didn't hear Nat's favorite book.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Oh my God!
Yes.
I actually feel like I was like, maybe if they don't notice, no. Wow. I feel like it shifts all of the time. So much of the High Republic I love, but honestly, if I have to talk about a book that I just go to over and over and over again, it's Bloodline. Bloodline is my absolute. It's a banger. Princess Leia's my girl, and
Leia got her groove back.
Yeah, Leia got her groove back, man. So yeah, Bloodline's my all-time favorite.
Speaking of stories that get so much more from the evolving story of Mandalorian and the creep that we get into the New Republic, it's like Bloodline just simmers and turns into a great stew, and it's like it means so much more today when you see the New Republic from the Mandalorian and like the infiltrators, and then you get to Bloodline and you're just like, man, it's been happening.
It slaps. Yeah,
it also hits different in the United States recently, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
AJ.
All right, I'm AJ. I went ahead and put the new handle up there on my usernames because I did change my name everywhere to 16-bit Star Killer. I like the alliteration. It's a little more flavorful. I don't know. I like it. So I'm
also, you play a lot of older games, so like it tracks.
I do. Exactly. And I started on the Sega Genesis, which was a 16-bit system. So like it tracks, right? I like it, but yeah, so that was the rebrand. Also, if you see me like moving, it's because this is the first time I think I've been on Dyad since we've had the background music playing all the time. So I'm just over here like, you guys talk, I'm good.
Hey, sometimes we got it,
Now I will say, I wanted to say Bloodline. So Choco got me into Bloodline. One of the first interactions we had was him recommending Bloodline, and that is like what got me into reading canon Star Wars books.
Yes.
And like that was the book that was the drug. But I've always said my favorite book was Master and Apprentice. I honestly think after reading Rise of the Red Blade that I'm ready to say, not Rise of the Red Blade, Brotherhood is my favorite book.
Interesting.
I think Brotherhood
what? Rise
is
of the
my
Red
favorite.
Blade amplifies Brotherhood in a weird
Yep.
way, and I get
And
you.
when you realize that Brotherhood is like this nexus of canon material within the prequel era, everything connects. It connects in some way to like 7 different books. And like, I don't know, I really have, the more I read it, the more I come to love Brotherhood.
I feel like Brotherhood represents something that kind of was started with the High Republic, but like this thing where the Star Wars writers are all just friends that can reach out and talk to each other. And you know, E.K. Johnson was talking to Mike Chen when she was writing her book, and like that, it's all connected. Also, pay attention to Mike Chen's new short story Brotherhood in the upcoming from a certain point of view Return of the Jedi, but we'll be talking about that later.
Yeah.
Let me just say, this is a full circle moment for myself, because the whole reason I started making content was to try and get people to read the books. So me talking to people originally started with a Saturday book club. I don't know if y'all remember that, way back in the day. And that's what we're doing now.
There was a lot less gray in my beard back then.
I had a lot less hair too.
There was a lot less of me physically. Yeah.
That's just more for the force to flow through, right? That's what we got.
More organic
Exactly.
flesh. Shout out to the chat. Darthman86, Cal4, Jackson Download, who says, so excited to share totally shocking dark side takes. Kenny's also saying, is that a rare AJ showing? Yes, we have
It is.
Ileana and Marianne in the chat as well. Welcome, guys, to the show. Let's see here. I wanted to first talk about really quickly something that's a revelation I had on AJ's stream, and I'm gonna make a video about this too. And I wanted your guys' take on it. The future of game consoles and how games are delivered. Now, this is becoming a problem. COD, Jedi Survivor, the latest Baldur's Gate, over 140 gigs. They don't fit on discs anymore. So what I'm proposing is that games are delivered on their own M2 SSDs. And we get a new console that just has an M2 slot. And
We're
we go
going
back to cartridges. Exactly. See, the thing is, back in the day, cartridges had its limitations on its PCB, where it couldn't stream live video. So, like in 64, they could have 64-bit graphics, they could have 3D stuff, but they couldn't have video, cutscenes, and so a lot of that stuff has been relegated to real-time stuff. First of all, like real-time cutscenes, but also like SSDs, man, they can stream shit, like a lot of it. And so just having, I would pay $80 to $90 a game if I didn't have to worry about storage space, and I didn't have to worry about installing it either. I would just plug in the M2 and then play from there.
I literally yesterday went to play Jedi Survivor on my own, and the amount of things I had to delete off of my hard drive to be able to reinstall Jedi Survivor was enough for me to play it for a couple of hours and go, I'm good, I need that space back. Baldur's Gate 3 comes to PS5 soon, so like I'm right there with you.
You know what? What's amazing to me, like, I don't know. I personally take for granted the expansion of digital memory. When they brought me out for the Survivor event, they were like, "Oh, we'll have some footage for you guys to take home or whatever." I'm like, sure. And so they handed me this terabyte storage, and I was like, there's like 30 minutes of video on this. And you just handed me a terabyte here, and like, but like, I don't know. I remember the days where my whole computer had 40 gigs, and we thought we'd never need space again. So like, it's weird.
I just think we're there technologically, you know, especially with SSDs going down to the size of like a double mint. What is it? What are those if we can get them down to that size, then we truly would have, you know, like.
And you could potentially have it so that that game, since that game would no longer be tied to your machine, it would be able to run in and of itself without necessarily the live service aspect of it. It would just run on whatever previous version it had, which would be really cool.
Yeah,
that is something I'm afraid of. Is, you know, God forbid something happens to Sony. Now I can't play Survivor, a game that I physically have, because it's not connected in it. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Also, I can't wait until the day I can take my binder and open it up and show people just all of my all of my cartridges. Like I still have my Sega Genesis cartridge that's like this big, or my little carrying case has like 40 cartridges in it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Natasha, are you a gamer at all?
I'm not, guys. I'm so sorry. I played.
No, I'm sorry for subjecting you to this.
No, I love this for you guys. No, I played KOTOR.
I saw her jamming. I started getting into it a little bit.
Yeah, this music is popping. No, I played KOTOR back in the day. But yeah, no, I am definitely a person that loves the story of games, but I don't have the patience. So I love all of you guys that I can watch playing these games. So like I can engage with the story. But the story aspect has been like really incredible the last like few years. So yeah.
Speaking of which, definitely check out 16-Bit Star Killer when he streams. And it goes back through some of the older games, most of them story-driven heavily. I got to watch AJ discover the secret of
was it Horizon?
Of Horizon, yeah.
Yeah.
When he got into the room, I got to be there live to see like the big unfolding of like, oh yeah, no, this is how this world works, and it was just a great moment.
Those games continue to like blow me away. I didn't expect Horizon 2 to be Horizon the Clone Wars. Like, not gonna explain that, but like, what?
I mean, to be fair, combining 2 gunpowders to make a handgun ammo was pretty much a revelation to you as well. So
it really was.
He was like, oh.
Just my entire Resident Evil 2 experience is, oh, it's just that sound.
I've never played any of those games, so I will have to hop on and live vicariously through you. Anyone in the chat is welcome, as well as you, Natasha. We'll check them out.
Yeah.
Don't
sorry.
listen to him. I didn't say that. No.
I'm sorry for that non sequitur. I was just thinking about how drives today are like 40% of the size of a console. And even like the digital edition of the PlayStation is like, it's not as big as it needs to be. Or it's too big. And I think if we shrunk down our need for the game to be a gum stick, then we could have like small little boxes.
It could be like your anime collection.
Yeah.
Size doesn't matter. Say it with me.
Nat, are you an anime fan at all?
Oh man, I feel like it's two for two. Not really. I feel like this is like the time to be engaging with anime. I will Sailor Moon, I feel like, is as far as I've gotten. And I love it. I like have an actual serious deep love for Sailor Moon, but no, beyond that, not
Sucks
really.
too.
Sailor Moon literally solos everyone's universe, so that's a,
So
that's a good.
I don't need to watch anything else. Is what you're
Yeah,
telling
yeah.
me.
Goku,
don't
who
need
she
to.
would whoop his ass.
But we would like for you. I'm trying. I want to try to prod you for like your sensibilities. What would you would like? Because not all anime is the same, right? So
Yeah, I feel like I am very into strong female characters. So that will get me. The thing that always scares me about anime is like I just do not love the over sexualization of women generally. So I think like if I could get some really excellent
you, Matt
anime
Leotis.
recommendations that fall into that category, I
Spy
welcome
Family.
it. Ooh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like Claudia's been the hype train for that for quite a while.
Yeah.
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 Straight up, Spy Family and Assassination Classroom, I think, are two very good. They feel
Never
they,
gonna escape
you watch it.
Assassination Classroom.
It's because it's so solid, you know. It's heartfelt, and you're gonna cry, but be happy about it.
Well, it's not hard to get me to cry. I feel like at some point in this podcast, when I am talking about this book, I will probably cry. So just be ready for that.
we're
I
just-
see that
yeah.
somebody's recommending Korra. We're not
Legend
talking
of
about
Korra.
Avatar. Oh, of course I've watched The Legend of Korra. Come on, guys, what do you take me for? If that is considered anime, then yes, I've watched Legend of Korra, and
The story is Western,
There's a weird.
but the animation studio is Korean.
yeah,
So I kind of give it a pass there.
yeah.
There's a weird delineation that doesn't quite need to exist. It does, and there are certain things that are feel more like the genre, or less like it. And it's largely who's telling the story, if it's Western people or Eastern people. But for anyone who is like, no, I'm against anime. Like, if you watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, there is anime that you will enjoy. That is a fact. Whether or not you consider that, there is something for you.
I think the delineation is necessary though. Wait, what do you mean by delineation?
I mean, I wish
Such
we
inquisitive
could.
music for this.
When it comes to anime, I wish that shonen was not the first genre that came in, the only genre that came into a lot of people's minds. I think a good story is a good story, and it doesn't matter if it's animated, live action, in a book. It doesn't matter who's writing the story. If it's a good story, I want it.
Okay. No, I was talking about the delineation being necessary because it's a cultural thing, right? You don't want like Western cartoons to suddenly, appropriate anime. Because it's largely a Japanese construct, the cultural construct after World War II, and
Yeah.
so like I hesitate to say Avatar is anime, but it has anime qualities. It's a Korean animation studio. So I mean,
Well, and that's like getting
Same thing
into
with Boondocks.
Yeah. Getting into One Piece, it's been interesting seeing how One Piece specifically borrows so heavily from Western animation, specifically things like, as we get towards where we are now, things like Looney Tunes. You can see because One Piece is fantastic. I always tell people, because if you were ever a little kid and you wanted to be a pirate, that's what One Piece is. That's literally like the whole series is just what you wanted to do when you were a kid and be a pirate. That's the show. But again, you can see Western influence on that one in the same way that you can see like the Eastern influence on Avatar. Interesting stuff.
Which is what ties us all back into Star Wars, because that was very heavily Eastern inspired. And
Very much
you
so.
know, enough that George contemplated buying the rights to Hidden Fortress because he was like, "No, it's the same movie."
Did he really?
Yeah. He was going to buy the rights, and that's kind of how they became really close friends.
Respect.
I love that.
Which is also why I maintain Ghost of Tsushima is one of the best Star Wars games. But
I
off
still,
topic.
if it comes to PC, I will play it. Because even today, I can't find a PS5. I mean, I could probably go like 50 miles from me and probably find one. But am I going to do that? No. So let's get to our main topic of today's episode of Dyad in the Force. I know Nat is chomping at the bits to start talking about it. Rise of the Red Blade by Delilah S. Dawson. Another book to hate Mace Windu. I'm just kidding.
I disagree.
No.
What?
No, we don't.
And I love you
We
for
don't-
it because I also disagree. With it.
No. We don't hate Mace Windu in this house. I always start my discussion about this book with I'm so afraid more people are going to unjustifiably hate on Mace Windu. Or
It made me love him more.
or unjustifiably hate the Jedi Order. Because there's a lot of people who are dogmatically against the Order, not for what they did, but what they experience in life. A lot of people saying that they indoctrinate children and kidnap children, which isn't the case, So a lot of those things, a lot of those really weird takes you should be hearing about the Sith. You hear about the Jedi, and this book is a huge criticism of the Jedi Order, which is valid. So go ahead. We'll start with Nat on this one. Like, what was your first impression? Like, as you started to read and you started to get to know Iskat and basically her story.
First of all, I'm gonna say that at different points today, I will bring up Anakin because it's gonna be impossible not to. I will say
I dunk on Anakin on a daily basis, so please do.
I think I'm gonna try to not be too overly controversial with this, but
You're free to be, by the way. This is 18 plus, and we are really good with discourse.
I love it. But no, I'm just gonna start off by saying I have never been somebody who has been particularly prone to empathy for Anakin. I'm just going to be really honest about that. I've always found his story to be deeply compelling. Like, I think it's so important, and so much of it is kind of central to a lot of the themes in Star Wars. But I feel like Anakin as a person, I have always found very difficult to be drawn to as a character. And like with Iskat, I'm like, oh, Iskat's like my Anakin, I think. I will go to the mat for Iskat. So I think I'm starting to feel what all the Anakin fans are feeling. But no, I think what I generally loved about the story is that at its core, it's centered on grief and what happens to grief if it is unchecked, if it's not dealt with. And while I also am somebody that feels like I fight with people a lot on the internet over the Jedi Order, I also think that a lot of Iskat's frustrations felt very, very, very valid to me. And I think that in the past, when I have seeing people articulate frustrations, like in story, like in the Star Wars universe, have frustrations with the Jedi Order, it always seemed to be rooted in something that just felt very like selfish and self-serving in a way that made me that makes it very easy for me to articulate like defenses, I think, for the Jedi. But honestly, the way in which like Iskat was so desperate for support around managing her grief and didn't really get that was honestly the first time I've ever felt like a bit of actual anger. And I was just like, yeah. I definitely think that people are going to have annoying, problematic takes about the Jedi, like they always do. And while I did not come out of this book feeling like it was a Jedi's fault, everything that happened to like Iskat, like that's ridiculous. And I am very excited to talk about like why like Iskat's circumstances were not the Jedi's fault. I also think that this is the first story where I have felt like the protagonist slash antagonist is has the most valid reasons I have seen to feel what they're feeling towards the Jedi Order. And I thought that the story did a really good job of balancing holding her grief, holding her very valid feelings, like showing her perspectives without making excuses for her. And I think that that's like a very, very hard line to draw. And honestly, I don't think it's always successfully done with Anakin, to be honest.
Anakin is a rare breed.
But like with Iskat, I think they do a really good job of really presenting a version of her life that she could have had that would have been like loving and like where I think she could have been more of her fullest self, where she could have like really like come into herself. And all of these things that were beyond her control, beyond anyone's control, happened to take away that potential life from her. And while all that is true, they did not shy away from how she immediately went into violent circumstances and leaned into violence in ways that she didn't need to, and enjoyed it and loved that and got her power from that. I guess last thing I'll say, just kind of as like my general feeling about the story, is I think that it's really easy when you have a female protagonist to try to give them a level of softness that you would not necessarily give to a male protagonist. And I actually love that they allowed her to be this full person that had like all of these different aspects to her. Like she was capable of loving somebody. She was capable of wanting, at least in her eyes, to have a better universe that was like in her mind at peace. But they also just like were not shy. The story was just like very clear that Iskat was making these very intentional choices and these very intentional decisions that harmed all of these people that really tried with her like over the years, and her resistance in believing that anyone like cared about her, that anybody loved her, that anybody like wanted to see her come to her full potential, was a lot of what was her own downfall. Like it was her own psyche doing that to her. And I appreciated that the story didn't to me anyway, didn't lean too heavily into making excuses for her.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's why I largely, whenever I start talking about this book, I largely preface it by saying that like Iskat's feelings are very valid.
Yeah.
But there's a certain amount of manipulation that obviously Anakin went through too. If we think about the person that she should have told the truth to, right? I always say with the Jedi, you get what you get out of the relationship what you put into it, right? And if Anakin had been honest with Obi-Wan and Mace and Yoda in their talks, they would have come different, you know? But if all Anakin gave them was boilerplate, like, I'm alright, then they're not gonna really come at him any without other like boilerplate answers, like, then just feel the Force, you know. And so Iskat's circumstances are similar in that regard, where she has a lot of these kind of feelings of neglect. And I will say, Semper Vey, even though like it was a product of circumstance, it was like another one of those on my deathbed, take care of this. It was like Qui-Gon telling Obi-Wan to train Anakin. It's like, oh, take care of my daughter or something. And then the person that she's being truthful with doesn't have her best interests at heart. It's just another one of those agents that are telling her everything she wants to know, just like Palpatine is like telling Anakin everything he needs to know, right? And it is a allegory for how harmful the dark side is, because like I won't call it an excuse. You might call it an excuse, but it's a stark example of like what the dark side can do to a Force sensitive. Like normal people that aren't Force sensitive don't really have brushes with the dark side emotions, but what Iskat feels in response to her feelings, the emotions she feels, I feel like the dark side exacerbates it, right? And in moments where she could be honest with someone, she isn't, because like it's clouding, you know?
Yeah.
But AJ, what did you think?
So, first off, I think that Iskat is what Anakin should have been in terms of like her story. Is exactly how Anakin's could have. When she finally is told the truth by the Grand Inquisitor, if she had said, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil, I wouldn't have thought it was a bad line. Like I would have bought it because of everything that we had seen and the way that it was presented. But I think the thing that I took away the most was, even like coupled with the grief, this is the best textualization of anxiety that I have ever seen. Because that is her big, like, Achilles heel throughout the entire book, is she is constantly worried about what other people are thinking. What are they really saying? She's constantly hearing people talking about her. She's constantly worried about all of that. And then along comes, just like with Anakin, along comes, you know, people in her life who confirm the anxiety that she has, who tell her that she's right, that she's justified. And not to spoil anything, I'm not gonna, but at the end, it is called into question whether or not everything that she's been believing about everyone around her is as true as we've been told that it is. The way that the Jedi that she knew when she was a part of the Order interact with her calls into question, were they really talking about her? You know, was she able to hear them talking about her? Or were they even saying it in that way? You know, a lot of communication is a two-way street. On the one hand, there is the way that we say things, but the part we have no control over is the way that those are interpreted by other people. And so the things that people are saying are being interpreted and filtered by her, and we get her perspective through that. But there is also something to be said about learning how to manage the way people talk, the way people communicate, and process that in a healthy way that she never did. And part of that is her own failing, and part of that is the people around her, part of that is her master, stuff like that. And I think that's what I really loved about this book, was the way that it just framed everything so that it all made sense. Like, for example, I don't know why I never gave a thought as to what the Inquisitors thought happened to the Jedi. Like, I guess I just assumed that the Inquisitors would know the truth. Like, they would know that they were hunting down the Jedi for the Sith. I never gave it a thought that, like, the propaganda goes to them as well.
Yeah.
And that they would buy the propaganda. Like, so when that happened, I was like, oh, this makes so much fucking sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I have something that I wanted to ask you guys, and I don't want to forget because I will, okay? So in this book, we see a Jedi embrace the dark side, right? And
this is also a fully spoilery talk, by the way, so
okay,
don't be afraid.
Okay, but we see her fall. We also see, Darth Vader. I've also been reading Plagueis because I heard Choco talking about it again, and it made me want to reread Plagueis, and I'm listening to it for the first time. And I came to this passage in chapter 12 of that book where Plagueis is talking to Palpatine about a Jedi becoming a Sith. And I know this isn't canon, but I was curious what you guys thought of this line through the context of this book, okay? So Plagueis tells him, propelled by fear or hatred, even a Jedi can pass beyond the constraints of the Order's teaching and discover power of a more profound sort. But no Jedi who arrives at that place, who has risen above his or her allegiance to peace and justice, who kills in anger or out of desire, can lay real claim to the dark side of the Force. Their attempts to convince themselves that they fell to the dark side or that the dark side compelled their actions are nothing more than pitiful rationalizations. That is why the Sith embrace the dark from the start. Focusing on the acquisition of power, we make no excuses. I know that book is Legends, it's not canon, but that thought crossed my mind when I was reading this book. Like, the Inquisitors are not Sith, but what does that also say about Vader and like the presentation of Vader that we get in this book? I don't know. I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump into that and my feelings on the book as well. In that passage, I think Plagueis is absolutely correct. I mean, in that book, Palpatine confronts his father, and his father's like, I've wanted you dead since you were born. Like, you looked up at me as a baby, and I could tell that you wanted to murder me. You know what I mean? I think the true Sith are a little cracked from the beginning, and I think we get a little bit of that with Iskat, where she comes into her power the most when she's murdering people, but because of her time with the Jedi, she has a conscience. So that is something that holds them back. You know what I mean? Like, you know how? Ooh, can't say that. Never mind.
Now I really want to know.
I know.
You should say that.
Do it.
No. So there are. Oh, best explanation of it: Spider-Man. Spider-Man pulls his punches when he hits people. Always has, and it's always part subconsciously. You know what I mean? Because it's never his goal, and he has that baked into him as a person. You know, and that's kind of normal for us. You know, I think my uncle used to work at with a lot of mentally challenged people, and he remarked about like when they would get mad, their level of strength, because they didn't have the same things restricting them from acting out whenever it happened. And so yeah, I absolutely agree with that there.
Just really
Go ahead.
quickly before you get into your thoughts on the book, I disagree with it. Just like, I mean, I think every Sith Lord that has ever existed can't agree on anything. I think
This is true.
every Sith Lord has their own take of the dark side and what it compels them to do, and their version of embracing it. Because first and foremost, what is canon is that the first Sith was a Jedi, right? And then if we go into Legends, we have all kinds of Sith, from the Dark Council to the Triumvirate, with Kreia having largely her own twisted version of what her what her goals should be, what her end game is. And it's largely incorrect, And so when we think about Sith Lords like Darth Maul, when we think about Malgus, they all came to some radically different conclusions about the dark side and how they should serve it and embrace it. And so I think ultimately they're all incorrect. Because they think the dark side is something that breaks their chains, when in actuality is a chain in and of itself. So I think Plagueis speaks eloquently in that line, but I also think he speaks selfishly and pretentiously.
Well,
yeah, and
just a point of clarification. When I say I believe in him, looking at Anakin and looking at Dooku, we are the sum collection of all of our experiences, right? And so in either of those people, there is someone that at one point had friends and had light and had love. Anakin, if he had been raised by Palpatine, couldn't have turned back to the light, not without something significant happening, because of the person who he became inside that connected with Padme, So that's more or less what I mean. But I do agree that all Sith Lords are always speaking absolute truth from their own perspective, and they don't ever say the same thing.
you said part of Anakin that connected with Padme, and that just reminded me that this book confirms that Darth Vader canonically has no dick. You're welcome. There you go. I've been shouting that from the rooftops since I got to that part. Darth Vader canonically has no penis.
I mean, I have a point of contention with with additionally what you just said, Choco, is that Darth Maul was raised as a Sith, but he found the Force, and he found a totally different conclusion. I don't think he truly came back to the light, but he was able to overcome the darkness in a way that allowed him to see past prejudices.
Oh yeah, and anyone can outlearn their prejudices. I just mean that there's a difference having this person inside of you and then suppressing them than there is. I'm not saying it's impossible to come out of the darkness.
I think you're right, Element, that it comes down to how one defines what a Sith is. What is a real Sith? It's that argument. You know what I mean? In Plagueis' opinion, a real Sith couldn't be someone who had been a Jedi. But you're right. It is kind of a personal thing. It's his interpretation of what a Sith is. But I do like that. I do like that it kind of would inform why Palpatine would make the Inquisitorius, but not call them actual Sith, because in his mind, there's no way you guys could be Sith, because that's what I was taught. And then Anakin's just built different.
And it also goes back to like the rule of two, right? Like only two there are, right? But I always argue from like a metaphysical standpoint that like there could be someone out in wild space with a Sith manuscript who thinks that they too are the one true Sith Lord, and they
I
have an
need that
apprentice.
story.
You
Darth
know?
Steve.
No, that's
That's
all of the expanded universe. There's literally a planet of Sith that existed the whole time. It's a whole planet,
yeah.
and like Sith, the actual species and all that stuff. Yeah. So it's funny because I think we took it. I probably took the question in a different direction because
Yeah, I
mine
didn't mean
wasn't
to
have to do with
derail
what
us
is
completely. I
true
just,
Sith. Yeah.
yeah, I just liked how like that. It reminded me of that with this book. Like, do you think Iskat ever really did fully embrace the dark side, even by the end? Because you talk about like the love that she had for Tualon, and it's like we see that Vader, and of course we knew this from the comics, but Vader senses their relationship and punishes them for it. So like obviously there's something in his mind about that love, that connection that wasn't Sith. So like,
Our
do
chains
you
are
think
broken.
it was
Right?
possible for any of the Inquisitors, including like Iskat in particular, to truly embrace the dark side?
I mean, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's clear that Vader was sensing that in Iskat, but like, I don't think that came from any sort of like purity of like, Sith aren't meant to like feel this sort of thing, feel this like love. I guess like I don't think like it was a textbook feeling that Vader was having. I think that Vader is very bitter that like he was never actually able to have like this like love, this like he lost Padme. Whether you know we want to think about like whose fault that was or whatever, that's a conversation for a different day. But like regardless of the circumstances.
Anakin's fault.
Yeah, a lot of
You're
things are.
among friends. It's
Yeah. A lot of things are. Anakin's fault. But I think it honestly came more from like a bitter, selfish place of like, I don't get to have this thing, you don't get to have this thing. Like, and that feels very Anakin to me. So I would be very surprised if his reaction to Iskat's, relationship was coming from a place of like wanting them to have some sort of Sith purity.
and he does specifically mention attachment when he yells at them, which is a Jedi. Like you do kind of wonder, is the Jedi kind of showing through him in that moment? But I just thought that was interesting. I derailed things a little bit.
No, that's why I call the Sith religion a chain in and of itself. Because even Palpatine often admonishes Vader for his attachment to Obi-Wan. It's like I thought you guys were like all about freedom and feeling your feelings, but it's just another chain.
I mean, plus your comment dovetails perfectly in my feelings about the whole book, because we see that struggle. You know what I mean? We see someone who is born and raised to have this sort of conscious, but whose experience is running contrary to a lot of the things that they've found, and has to really deal with that. And that's something that I think a lot of us have experienced. That's one of the reasons why this book is so good. We mentioned it before, but the Delilah S. Dawson talks about putting all of her emotions from being neurodivergent and ADHD and synesthesia and all this stuff. She wanted to put all of those emotions of feeling different and unable to connect into a character. And I think that's what really makes the character shine. But it's interesting because her story it becomes something of more of rebellion against something than it is believing in anything, right? She was longing for this connection, And she was meant to believe that she could get that amongst the Inquisitorius. But the thing is, those people are not going to have your best interest at any point ever. You know? I think even when, having a kid, and we see this with dark side users all the time, especially in like the expanded universe, Malgus fell in love and came to that realization and admitted it. Then he murdered her because that's a weakness. Their existence meant something existed that could potentially pull him, make him care about this thing outside of himself. And that's always a danger. I don't know. Overall, though, like you said, this book didn't pull any punches with letting us know that their decisions were their own fault and that there was a way. There's several checkpoints where there is a way out, and there is people who are like, talk to me, tell us what's happening. And she knows, well, if I tell them, then I won't get this.
Yeah.
If I do this, then I won't get that. Or I can't tell them. Which also takes me back to Dooku Jedi Lost. Because there's a Jedi on the Council who had that feeling. And Yoda's like, if you had told us, we would have helped you. We want to help. And that's why I actually do really enjoy the characterization of the Jedi in this book, because at no point is any of the Jedi not acting with someone with the best interest of others in mind. It may not fit. It won't fit for certain people, and some people will have a lot of difficulty with it. But I can't say at any point anyone in the Jedi organization was acting selfishly or maliciously against it. This is all their interpretation of those things and the reaction to them.
So, if I may, this book confirmed for me, in a way, what I think has always been the Jedi Order's greatest weakness, particularly in the era of the prequels. So, and that is fear. Like, the first path to the dark side is fear. And the Jedi are afraid of losing their people to the dark side. They're afraid of people giving into the dark side. And through this, they deny information. They give their simple platitudes because there is a fear of, if we had told you what had happened to your mom, what would that have done? Like, there's fear on her of what's going on, what don't I know, this fear of the unknown. It's also a fear that the Order really comes to embrace by a certain point, and they don't seek out answers. Like, there is a question in Dooku Jedi Lost, and it comes up again in this book. Why don't they talk about the dark side? Like, why don't they, beyond like Yoda warning people like the dark side's bad for you, they don't teach the younglings, they don't teach the Padawans, like, what is the dark side? Why is that? What is the history of our relationship with it? And I really do think it comes from a place of fear based on what we see through Yoda across different books and through the Council. There is this fear, if we tell them too much, well, then they'll be seduced by the lure of it. And maybe they're right. Maybe it's an impossible question, because the reality is, as Yoda says, we are all faced with the dark side all the time. So maybe it is an impossible point to really know where the correct line is. But that fear to discuss it, that fear to engage with it, ultimately leads people like Iskit, people like Anakin, to seek out answers that they're not getting because the people around them won't give them to them.
I think
real quick, because I really do agree with what you're saying, and I think it's shown very well in the Clone Wars Season 6 of Yoda recognizing his own inner darkness, that the Jedi are blinded to their true reasons. Like, the Jedi are also having cognitive dissonance about this. So they aren't aware that this is fear that is guiding this decision.
Yeah.
Right. Which we
Yeah.
often are not. Like, we don't recognize that a lot of times.
But it's also a quandary in the fact that the dark side is what it is. There's nothing more to it. What they teach them is in actuality is everything that you need to know. Right? Because to delve deeper is to subject yourself to it. As Kat shows it in this book when the tome that she finds, all she can feel is its pull. So anything that's associated with the dark side is in fact a vacuum in and of itself.
But that is not really explained to her.
Right.
Like, that's where I'm coming from, is that you're right, but that is not communicated to her. She's just shut down about it.
Well, the thing about explaining the dark side is that it's not a thing to explain. What the Jedi teach is that when your baser emotions start to control you, that's when you start to feel the dark side. And to dive deeper into the dark side beyond what drives it would be to start teaching it. You know what I mean? It is an impossibility because quite frankly, if you start talking about dark side techniques, Sith techniques, and like all that stuff, you're literally teaching the dark side. But all you need to know about the dark side is that it starts to control you and it feeds off of your emotions, and they do teach that. You know? But I
think that there is like an element of humanizing, like talking more about like what the human cost is. Historically, something that people can something more concrete, because like I think that my problem is very similar to what you've already been saying, AJ, around the way that the Jedi just kind of speak in platitudes when it comes to the dark side. I just don't see how you learn anything from that. And I have to be really honest, the whole time I was reading this book, and the way that the dark side is presented to Iskat, I too would be like, you're not explaining anything. Like, I feel like I have to go out now and learn more stuff, because like you're not actually giving me any of the answers that I want. And I agree that I agree that there isn't much more to the dark side, like in technicalities, but I think that there are things in our histories that are important to know in how the dark side has impacted individual people, like within the Jedi Order or outside of the Jedi Order. And I think like without creating a human connection to like what that cost could be, that's just going to cause more curiosity to people who have questions. And I don't think that the answer should be stop being curious.
Well,
I don't think
I think
Yoda learns that lesson because he gives a much better explanation to Luke in Empire Strikes Back than he
100%.
ever gives before that.
Yep.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that. Like, I think that's evidence that he realizes that maybe he needs to provide a little more framework for Luke to understand this, because he's not getting it, and he still doesn't
agree.
In addition to that, we also have his lesson to Luke in The Last Jedi. And I think that's the larger problem, is they weren't passing on the failures of the Jedi.
Yes.
Now, but I will say there's a difference between passing along the failures of the Jedi and actually studying the Sith, because that is a very slippery slope, because it is like the dark side pulls you in. You can't give him a taste. It's like, It's
Yeah.
like teaching your kids about crack by like giving them a little bit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. and I'm not saying that that's what they need to do.
But and that goes towards my baser argument, which is all Yoda ever says, even though you say it's a better explanation, is you will know.
Well,
You will know, because when we're learning ourselves, no one ever goes into detail about why we shouldn't do these things. No one ever teaches us about, we have to learn from experience. We have to grow as adults and learn, and so something I want to point out in canon is that when they become Jedi Masters, they are no longer privy to permissions. They can study whatever they want. Like it says in the Chronicles of the Jedi book, that once they become masters, they have access to the entire archive. They can study whatever they want and learn more. And I think it's largely informed by the fact that, for the most part, you are not prepared emotionally and physically developed enough to encounter such things as a Force sensitive. And so when we meet, like in the High Republic, when we meet Elzar, for example, he's a master. He already knows what it feels like, and he knows that he needs to get help for what he's feeling, right? But when it comes to initiates, Padawans, I agree that them not teaching them more about it is out of fear, but at the same time there is precedence for tempering their minds before they can actually go out and, because if you tell a youngling, go into the Jedi archives and put on Moment's Mask.
But you're also putting words in my mouth a little bit, because I'm not trying to say that they need to show them how to do Sith lightning, Force lightning, or know how to choke people. I know, but I'm not saying they even need to teach them what Sith techniques are or anything. I'm just saying that, like, something besides just the dark side is bad, don't do it. Like, especially when you notice that there are Padawans, younglings, who are struggling more than others. Like, the Jedi takes a very one-note approach to almost every student, and you can see that there are some students who need a little bit more understanding, who need a little bit more, like, of an explanation of why it's dangerous, beyond just, like, the vague, like, it's bad.
Well,
I think that probably speaks more to masters need to stop accepting students when they are not ready to be a master to those students. I think there's also an aspect of what exactly do the Jedi know about these things, and are we in a situation where, I mean, it's been around for over 1,000 years. At the time of the prequels, there were 10,000 Jedi in the galaxy. Yeah, they take a one-size-fits-all approach, but it's worked pretty damn good. You know what I mean? Now, the rough edges on there would usually be sanded off, because the master would pick this specific student and be like, I can relate to this person. I can teach this person. This cat didn't have that. And I think that's also a big part of their struggle. But
because they were afraid of her. Like, because they were afraid. Like,
but that's not a Jedi problem. That's this.
No, I know, but I'm saying that's a specific problem to like, in all reality, they should never have taken her in the first place. Like, if you really look at the book, in my opinion, they shouldn't have taken her in the first place. Like, I understand the idea that she needed training, but we also know that her powers would fade eventually. Like, as she mentions in the book, and we knew otherwise, like, they were all afraid of her. Like, if no one there wanted to train her, why take her in the first place?
Well, hold on. I have to push back. Like I have been pushing back, because
I appreciate it.
because we don't know actually what they teach, right?
Yeah. Fair.
Our perspective of them just teaching in platitudes is all circumstantial within their encounters in these stories. We have
Fair.
problematic Padawan here who is having trouble not being honest with people about their problems, and then you get platitudes. Same thing with Anakin. But what I'm pushing back here now is that the Jedi didn't take her. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Anakin. Oh, Qui-Gon. I blame Qui-Gon for this. And it's a hot take of mine. Qui-Gon on his deathbed saying, "Promise me you'll train the boy." Right? And after that scene, Yoda's like, the council does not agree with you training the boy. But because Qui-Gon is his death wish, agree with the council, we do. And then confer the title of knight, the council does, onto
Have we
everyone.
ever seen the Jedi say no to someone?
Yeah.
Canonically? Like, who? No, I mean, like, turn away someone who tried to give their child to the order, turn away a knight, like, other than, like, failing the trials, or, like, have we seen them go, this isn't the place for you? Because I feel like what we always see is them going, don't worry, we'll make it work, unless they scrub out themselves or, like, through the trials. And I'm like, maybe there should be a point where you just go, maybe this isn't the place for you. You know,
well,
but-
that's 'cause we've only-
Anakin is the best example of them saying no.
yeah, but when Qui-Gon said, you're going to train, promise me you'll train him, they said, oh, all right, fine. Even though they did say no.
Yeah, an example of like
That's a different
actually
problem.
really saying no.
Right.
It's a different problem than.
But, like, you
than
wonder
the
why
Jedi
couldn't the
themselves.
council have said no, Obi-Wan? Could they have said,
the
like-
dialogue? The dialogue literally says, Yoda does say, "We don't agree with you training the boy."
But they still take him
But
anyway.
but he still does.
But
My
that's
point-
a different conversation
Okay.
entirely.
Okay.
No, I mean,
No, I know.
like
I know what you're saying.
Genuinely, they have said no to a lot of people, and they don't take children when the parents don't want to give them.
Yeah, and I'm not.
And I'm not saying you are saying that. I'm saying
Yeah.
a lot of these stories are isolated incidents, right? Choco points out there's 10,000 Jedi in the world. There's a lost 20. And so you think about these extenuating circumstances where a Padawan is given to a master out of, like, someone's wish, from, like, dying wish. Already they're in a pretty precarious circumstance where this isn't where they should be, right? And so, like,
All right.
go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was gonna take us back in a different direction. So go ahead and finish what you were saying. I have a segue. I promise.
So I mean, so all I was saying is that, like, these stories that we're getting from Iskat and Anakin and anybody else who fell to the dark side, including Dooku, are special exceptions, really, like, to people who had circumstances that were out of their control. They were put into this situation, not by their decision, and we don't know largely what the Jedi teach outside of their encounters. Like this is why I always point out, the relationship you have with the Jedi, you get out of it what you put into it. And Iskat largely wasn't as soon as she found some clues to who she was, who her mother was, she wasn't invested in her relationship with the Jedi. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, but that's what strained the relationship with the Jedi in the first place. She felt alone. She felt other.
I think that there was already a lack of connection that existed, though. Like, and I think that that's actually really important, and that's one of the things that I loved about this story, and what it explored with Iskat, because I think that her interest in finding her home world and learning where she came from and all these things, which I think are all normal and like, you know, I think are experiences that like other Padawans have had. I think that her interest in that was rooted in already feeling this lack of belonging, not feeling like this connection with her master. And like, I also just think it was really funny when she had that like really brief encounter with Obi-Wan in the book, and she has this thought of like, oh, you know, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she's basically like, I wish that this was like my Jedi Master, which LOL, no you don't. That would have been a disaster. But I think that a lot of that was already coming from the distance she was already feeling. And I don't think that that's a Jedi's fault. I don't even really put like a lot of fault on her master either. I think that there were circumstances, like we just keep saying, that were very unique. And I feel like there was just like a lot of pressure that her master felt in having to do right by her friend, but ultimately not really feeling bonded to this person. And I think that again, that's nobody's fault, but I do think that that is where Iskat was coming from. And I don't think she distanced herself from the Jedi because she was so interested in finding out like where her roots were. I think she was interested in that because of the lack of belonging she felt.
Yeah. Which that goes back to my point from the very beginning about her anxiety. That question of how much of that like lack of belonging is also her like feeling like she doesn't belong since she doesn't look like anyone else, doesn't feel like anyone else.
Yeah.
How much of that is also her assuming all of these things about other people, making her feel like she doesn't belong, making her feel like everyone else is judging her. Because like I said, when we get to the end of the book and she approaches fucking Charlene, or however you say it, you know, she approaches her and she's like, what are you talking about? Well, I didn't do that. And yeah, from Iskat's point of view, and maybe the truth, you know, of course you did. You're just denying it because you're dying, you know, because I'm about to kill you. But on the other hand, how much of that could be true? You know, when she said some of the Jedi make me uncomfortable, who says she was talking about Iskat? You know, I mean, hell, she talks at one point about Mace Windu making her uncomfortable. Like, is it possible that they weren't always talking about her? You know what I mean?
Makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, there is something to be said of the beauty of the Jedi in their storytelling is that they are not a monolith. They look like they are. They dress similar, a lot of them, but when it comes down to it, when you look at each individual one, they are people. They all have their faults. They have their goods. They have their bads. There's people they'll connect with, people that they won't. You could be an amazing master and not connect with that one person. You could be, you know, Mace Windu, arguably the best track record, you know, that we know of. His lineage is pretty thick, you know. It's interesting because like we keep saying, everything she felt was real to her, but when we consider how much of a lived-in universe Star Wars is, like, we could tell a whole nother story from her master's perspective of taking care of this child who whenever she turns around, is doing some like sinister shit, and she's like, "Oh my god, is this?"
There's a box of rats under her bed. Like what?
You know what I mean? But like that would be a compelling story too, and from that perspective, you would be like, "Oh, it makes sense. Your close friend struggled with all these things, and thought that if they were raised by a Jedi, then maybe they wouldn't have gone through this struggle. So they gave you their child and said, take care of them so that they don't have to go through what I went through." But you don't know if that's going to be a better choice, you know? And that's the thing is, in this universe, there are no right answers. Of course, we get these stories because they're the interesting ones, right? There's 10,000 other Jedi who grew up well-adjusted with friends and successful careers. We don't get those stories because that'd be boring. But I know it's so. Also, shout out to Iskat, because she hooked up with literally the blackest man in the galaxy. So.
Literally.
Dipped in crude oil. What color is that? Because I go back to the comics and I'm like, what the? Like, is he just literally midnight? Like, is he just like...
I thought he was wearing wearing something this whole time, but no.
Obsessed.
He's just...
I love it.
I did have a question for you guys though, because there was that one scene where she's climbing the wall and gets the premonition of what's about to happen to the guy she's climbing with. Has a brief moment where she might have been able to do something, but it all happened so quickly. And that moment for me was very indicative of everything in Star Wars. Everything in Star Wars, right? The Jedi are trying to do right by these people. The Clone Wars break out. A bunch of your masters all die in one day. And they're on the back foot, you know? And they're going to do what they can, but they can only do so much. That moment, there's something about to happen, but you're like, we're still dealing with stuff right now? Is me failing this my fault? Or is this a product of the circumstances? And that also kind of, I feel like, informs her story as well. I'm curious how you guys felt about that moment.
I have a quick answer. I think I largely agree with you about that. Was kind of like the tipping point for Iskat, because she could have saved him, but at the same time, what she tells the troopers and what she tells Tualin is a lie.
That's the moment that got me for that is after it's all done. The first thing he asks what happened, and she goes, well, I never liked the dude anyway, and you know, I couldn't have caught him anyway. And he's like, I meant, how did he fall? And you're like, oh, like she slipped.
You will know.
We have a phantom voice in here. Hold on 1 second. He's getting ready to proctor. Real fans would know. How's it going, David?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Continue, AJ, though, if you were still in a thought.
Oh no, that's exactly where I was.
What about you, Nat?
Yeah, I think like a part of her felt genuinely like, hey, I tried everything, you know, I could, you know, I did what I could or whatever. But I think like a deeper layer of herself knows that she could have actually tried. She could have. Yeah. But I think there is still this part of her that wants to believe that she's this better person than she actually is. And yeah, I really loved that very first conversation that she has like afterwards, because like that's like when she first is sort of voicing that deeper layer that like exists there, that she's been like repressing and not speaking out loud for a really long time. And that was like the first little like bit of her letting that come out, and seeing that visceral reaction she received, like I think had her like push that down a bit again. But no, yeah, I think that as much as I feel a level of empathy for her. She's an incredibly calculating person. And I think that she reveals what she can to people to get the results that she wants. And she is careful about like things that she thinks that people won't respond well to.
The words plausible deniability
Yeah.
play in her head over and over
Yeah.
again.
100%.
But I think that was also the first time as well that there was this shaky ground. That was actually the first time where it was actually affirmed that she didn't belong, right?
Mhm.
Because them sending her on that mission was like she was like, oh my gosh, it's finally time. They really want to like put me to use and like my skills. And then she goes on there, she gets the job done, comes back, and they're like, you killed a bunch of civilians. Like, it was like, but I got the job done. It's like, right? It was like an Anakin response.
That was what I was gonna say. Was
Oh,
you know what
man.
my problem with that? The first thing I thought of with that scene was if that had been Anakin,
Yeah.
he'd have just been sent on another mission. Like, why is she treated so much differently than Anakin?
Space misogyny.
Exactly. That was my whole takeaway. I was like, really? Like, she gets demoted? Like legit? While Anakin just continues to get promoted to more and more serious stuff.
Imagine
What?
both of them out in the field at the same time, though, like just wreaking havoc in two different directions.
Yeah, Anakin had a very wealthy and influential benefactor behind the scenes,
Yeah.
helping out.
Hey,
But
he liked her too. No.
I feel like there was just a lot of that for me actually in the story, where there were so many times where Iskat had such an Anakin reaction to things, where I was just like, this is wild. And like to the point in which they like, I feel like demotion is honestly almost too calm a word for like what they end up doing to her. And again, I don't think it was the incorrect move. Like I'm like, take her out of the field, please. I think that was the right move. And the whole time that she was basically grounded for years.
2 years.
2 years. I was just like, someone should have done that to Anakin.
But also,
Yeah.
the only witness to all of his war crimes
God.
is Obi-Wan. Mr. Shrug his shoulders and go, "It's fine." Like,
Yeah, maybe she would have actually loved Obi-Wan as her master after all. Yeah.
I will say this book did make me like really irritated what Jocasta knew. But like she also, because of her personality, it makes sense she would make a great librarian. You know, it takes certain types. I kind of have a final question for you guys. In the end, Iskat has an epiphany. It kind of thinks back and realizes like, I wanted freedom. Like this is not that. This is not. Well, she got sold a bunch of snake oil into joining this death cult that she can't get out of, you know? If she were able to re-roll her life, if she were able to start again post-epiphany, all the same events still happen, Clone Wars break out, all that stuff, what do you think she would have done?
I mean, what do I think she would have done?
Would have and should have.
Yeah, should like I think should have. She should have stayed on her home world. When she found her home world, I knew it wasn't gonna happen, obviously. But I was just rooting for her to just like be amongst this like beautiful matriarchal society that was just like so peaceful. And obviously there was this like part of her that knew she didn't belong there, or feared she didn't belong there. But honestly, I wish she had allowed herself the opportunity to just live actual peace in a loving environment. And I think so many things could have shifted for her if she had made that one change. Just don't go back. Just stay on that planet and like just disappear. I that is like a thing I really, really, really wish she would have done. And like, I don't know about like any other changes. I think like, again, so many things, so many circumstances were not necessarily against her, but beyond her control. But I think my general feeling is the same feeling I have about Anakin. Just be honest. Just tell people, like in the Jedi Order, tell your master the fullness of what you're feeling. And I think that there is like this like fear, this anxiety, this idea that like these people will turn their back on you. They won't understand. They won't care. They're going to throw you away. And I think that that is like the most heartbreaking thing about Iskat and Anakin, that they don't believe that people will love them enough through the truth. And I wish that she could have believed that.
Yeah. If you lie to the people who are closest to you, you no longer have respite when you're at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see that. Sorry, I was just going to say we see that same, not the thinking that people will love them after their mistakes, in Luke in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And Ben.
I feel like a lot
Rise
of
of Skywalker.
I feel like a lot of problems would be solved, just like Elzar, if you would literally just like, what troubles you? I feel like I'm being pulled to the dark side, instead of like, giving them boilerplate like responses. Dave, feel free to answer this and include like a I guess a micro take of the entire book in general.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I a couple of times was like, oh man, is this cat right? Like, I'm so confused right now because it's making sense, but it's also evil. Because there was a couple of times where I'm like, oh, dial it back. That's too much. That's you went too far. I will also say that I enjoyed this book more than any of the High Republic Phase 2 books, for sure.
That's interesting.
My Convergence loving heart is like so upset right now.
No, I can get the perspective on one character for the most part.
I love that people loved Phase 2. I couldn't get behind it.
Oh my god, we need a whole other episode to unpack this.
We do, actually.
And we will.
Phase 2 made me hate Yoda. I said it, and I'll expand on it some other time.
I'm pretty sure it has
I've got a lot of Yoda hater
Horizon.
energy for you.
And yep, it just you know what? We'll table this discussion for 200 years and not tell anybody, and then be like, "What happened? Oh no! You son of a bitch!"
Except at the end of Midnight Horizon, he brings the solution.
Yeah, after he spent 200 years not talking about this at all. He didn't tell anybody. They could have been prepared. They could have been like, "Oh shit, Loden got turned to stone. I know what that is. We talked about this at a meeting one time." But no, Yoda was like, "Nah, I'll just keep that between you and me."
I have some pushback, but that's another discussion.
We always do. I know. I love it. Can I? To answer this question real quick with the tiniest little thing. As someone who suffers from depression and anxiety and many things, the thing that broke me in this book was when she talks about staying on Picori and she mentions that she's broken and that she's a warrior, and what good would a warrior have on a world like this? Yeah. She's too broken to stay here. And so I think any amount of going back, there is always going to be that feeling that she's just wrong. She's just broken. And you are right element every time that if you would just talk to someone, anyone, you might be able to find a way out. But when you feel that you are broken, it is so honest and real that you would refuse to talk. Because nothing they say is going to fix that which is broken in your mind. And you're 100% right. And this is my reminder to anyone out there who watches this, who interacts with this, that if you are struggling, reach out. There is help out there. Because I'm talking as much to myself as I am to anyone else. And that's the takeaway from this book, is that much like the dark side, you know, it consumes. It lies to you. It tells you that you're broken, that you're not good enough. You know, but that's a lie. It's not the truth. You are good enough. And like Pep said, reach out. Talk to someone. Understand that you're good enough. And until Iskat comes to grips with that, no amount of going back is going to fix her problems. That's the thing that's broken, is her view of herself. It's her understanding of herself. And that's all.
That's a beautiful place to end the discussion. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, that's why I keep on saying with the Rise of the Red Blade
that's why we're here.
is that it's like the ultimate takeaway from the book is that her feelings are very valid. This has nothing to do with, like, you know, she is wrong. Her feelings are wrong. Like, we never want to say someone's feelings are wrong or invalid. But Daxon popping back up with his, it's going to be my son's second birthday tomorrow, so off to be with a fam. Happy birthday to your son. Happy second birthday.
Congratulations.
It also says, I think the ending showed she would rather die wrong and happy.
And that is a sad reality for a lot of people who struggle. For a lot of people who struggle, she would rather embrace death because it ends the personal suffering, whether that is, and that is unfortunately why too many people take the easy way out, you know, is because it ends their personal suffering. But again, that's the point, is that, like, there were alternatives anywhere throughout the road. She didn't have to feel that way. And this is cathartic, you know, if you look at it that way.
And just like one other thing, I know, like, we're like, oh, those last words, 20,000 words ago. I think that really resonates with me. And also as a person who has just, like, really been up and down with, you know, mental health for a really long time, I think that's a big part of why this book resonated with me too. And I think the way in which they handled her mother's story, which we didn't even get into, and, like, man, that, like, whew, that was like a lot. I think that her going on the discovery of finding out the truth of what happened to her mother, and how she did end up taking her life, I think only affirmed that, like, see, like, the Jedi couldn't help her, you know, nobody could help her, I think also affirmed that she was, like, not savable, you know, and feeling like she had received this thing that was, like, passed on to her, which is also super real. And yeah, this book just handled that so well. It was so nuanced, with so much grace and care. And while also, again, I just want to affirm the idea that, like, you have to have a willingness to get yourself out of that. And she just wasn't. And in the end, and it was very sad, but, like, you know, I had this, like, small little bit of, like, even despite all of it, this little piece of warmness that, like, she had this, like, little kernel of love before she before she was gone. And I'm glad that she had that.
So,
You know,
go ahead, Choco.
no, you go ahead, Pat.
Well, I was going to give myself, as a host, the final word on the segment. So
Actually,
if you
one
have
more.
something-
No.
If you have something, go for it.
It's because Dexon brings up in the chat, you know, she's like, now I'm finally free, and there's this concept that if only I can get this, then I'll be happy. If only they will accept me, then I'll be happy. If only I can get back out there in the field, then I'll be happy. If only I can find out what species I am, then I'll be. That's just not. It's not what she needed. And the thing that she needed to make her feel happy was what she had all along. He was always in her corner. He was always there for her. You know.
Are we dyadic right now?
So it's I mean, Anakin needed Padme, right? Padme's like, let's run away. It'll just be me and you.
But
Nah.
I would expand on that to say that happiness comes from within,
Yes.
not from another person. Now that feeling that they get unlocked their own happiness, but
Yeah.
it is dangerous to say that they made them happy in
I
the sense
agree,
that
yeah.
because that implies that one can't find happiness within themselves because that's just another thing. I know what you're saying
True.
though. I
Yeah.
know what you're
She
saying.
couldn't
Yeah.
accept it until she.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah.
had to find that within herself. Otherwise, you are always chasing a person or a thing, looking for something that's going to make you whole, make you not broken, make you happy. And yeah, at the end, she has to finally realize that she's happy where she is, with who
Yeah.
she is, with where she is.
Yeah.
And with that, the final word on this segment to end it on a lighthearted note and to add on to what Nat said, I think my answer to Choco's original question way back when is I think she would have avoided a lot of troubles if she would have got busy with Tualin earlier.
That's all she needed.
Hey, it was in her mind she was craving it for a long time. Anyways, it's time to shift to our closing segment, which is Real Fans Would Know, A New Hope edition. If you are unfamiliar with it, Real Fans Would Know, we are giving, or David at this point is giving statements as to things that happened in the movie, and we have to point out the incorrectness of these statements. So we'll shift over really quickly to that. So the rules are maximum of 3 attempts to correct a statement. You can only reattempt after someone else has attempted, and a statement will never be incorrect by omission or lack of specificity. So if we say Obi-Wan and Anakin were in a room, it's not incorrect because Yoda was also there. And all answers must start with Real Fans Would Know. And David is our proctor this week. He wrote all of the statements for this A New Hope Real Fans Would Know. So David, go ahead.
All right. How do I put them? Do I put them up on the screen or just read
I'll
them?
put them on, and then you can read them from the screen.
Okay.
So first statement.
All right. As the Imperials board the Tantive 5, C-3PO finds R2-D2 by the escape pods as Princess Leia is giving R2 the Death Star plans. C-3PO exclaims, "At last, where have you been? They're heading in this direction. What are we going to do? Will we send to the spice mines of Kestrel, smashed into who knows what?"
I mean,
Choco.
He Real Fans Would Know. He didn't say smash into who knows what.
He did say that. He did.
are
Real fans would know spice mines of Kessel.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
I was like, is this a trick question?
I thought that was a typo.
I thought it was just a I thought it was a
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought that
disclosure,
wasn't the answer. No.
I think some of these kind of suck, but I just,
No. That's
No.
great.
Hey,
that is
hey,
great.
I'm
That is
you
not
great.
great.
got
I'm
me.
already winning.
You got me. I was like, yeah, Kestrel, right.
That's my D&D character's
So-
name.
Yeah, that's the character he always uses, and so I was like, oh, maybe he played something with Pep, and then like got it messed up. No, so
I mean, I
that's-
knew
that's
that.
perfect.
Duh.
All right, so is that the only one? Is it just Kessel?
there is one more.
Oh.
I mean, I knew that.
I mean, real fans would know that it's a Tantive 4.
That's it. Yep.
Okay.
That's the one.
Okay. I thought that one. I can at least be proud of myself on that one in my head. I'm bad at trivia, and this is my first time playing Real Fans Would Know. So,
All right, here we go. Next statement.
R2D2 enters an escape pod to which C3PO says, "Hey, you're not permitted in there. It's restricted. You'll be decommissioned for sure." R2 retorts and C3PO replies, "Don't you call me a brainless philosopher, you overweight blob of grease. Now come out before somebody sees you."
Oh,
Yep.
real fans would know he says mindless philosopher.
Yep.
Uh,
That's one. There are two more.
That got me too, because I was too busy trying to think of the right words, and I was like, no, it's not brainless. It's empty-headed. No, it's yeah.
is he really? Oh. Anyway, let me think about this.
Well, I can't go until someone else does.
I feel like
I feel like I need to watch A New Hope again.
It's actually been quite a long time since I've watched it.
oh, this one's hard.
Real fans would know he doesn't call him an overweight blob of grease.
That's correct.
That's what I kept.
He calls him an overweight glob of grease. That was kind of pedantic.
Oh,
This is
Oh,
pedantic.
he says overweight. Fat shaming.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
yeah. Porkins dies in that movie. And they named him Porkins.
I just have to find out like about him finding out the day of like, what's my character's name?
Wild.
I want to know. I want to, from a certain point of view, story where we find out that that wasn't even his name. His name is like Jim. His name is like Jim Smith, and they just fucking call him Porkins. And then all of a sudden, I'm just like, I hate these guys.
There was one more in there?
There's one more.
Oh shoot.
All right,
Choco.
real fans would know that he doesn't say you'll be decommissioned for sure.
That's correct. He says you'll be deactivated for sure.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
All right.
My brain always does this. Like, well, it's the same. So I'm not gonna get most.
These are
of
good.
these.
Yeah,
These
I'm
are
so
good,
bad
though.
at trivia.
These are good.
But I got the first one, so I feel
No,
like
no,
I'm good.
high five.
You're doing great. You don't have to be good at trivia. Just when something like wrinkles your brain, just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right, next statement, David.
All right, yeah.
Trivia holds you back, actually.
Princess Leia is captured and brought before Darth Vader. Leia says, "Lord Vader, only you could be so bold. The Senate will not sit still for this. When they hear you've attacked a diplomatic," Darth Vader cuts her off and says, "Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission this time. Several transmissions were transmitted to..." I can't see the bottom. Transmitted to the ship by rebel spies. Who was first? I didn't see.
I was
think
first.
Choco.
From my perspective.
Yeah, I think it was Choco.
From a
There's
certain
delays.
point of view.
Real fans would know that Leia does not say the Senate will sit still for this.
That's correct. She says Imperial Senate, which I forgot to say. No, I didn't do the no omissions thing. I actually omitted a word in that one.
Oh, okay. But doesn't she say will not stand for this?
She says will not sit still for this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
My
I had to
answer
go
was
back and
correct,
watch it again.
but that's
just
what I
to
thought.
double check my answers.
That's true. I would have gotten it wrong.
Real fans would know Darth Vader doesn't say you weren't on any mercy mission this
He
time.
does say that.
Oh, okay. I mean, I knew that.
You
I
were
just wanted
testing.
somebody else.
Yeah.
It's the name of the game. I do this all the time. I just stab in the dark. Like, is it that?
Right. I'm like, get a couple of guesses.
Choco?
Real fans, she doesn't refer to him as Lord Vader.
That's correct. She says Darth Vader.
Oh.
Oh.
She was doing her British accent there, so I was
Darth Vader. Yeah.
Lord Vader.
That's very
You're
weird.
Are there more?
One more. There's one more.
Oh, okay.
Real fans would know Vader doesn't say several transmissions were transmitted.
That's correct. He says beamed.
The transmissions and transmitted double. I was like,
It can't
that doesn't
be.
sound
It
right.
can't be.
I couldn't think of another word. I'm like, screw it. I'm putting that in.
I love that.
I would have got that if I could see it.
if this was the prequels, I'd have been like, yeah, George wrote that.
Oh, you can move the call bar, by the way.
Oh, can you?
Oh, yeah, you can. I'm going to do that right now.
Oh.
That's
I mean, duh, that's how I knew.
But yeah, no, that line was giving.
Life-changing.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
All right, next statement.
During the sale of the droids to Uncle Owen and Luke Skywalker, Luke is tasked with finding a droid that speaks Bocce. Owen questions C-3PO about his understanding of moisture evaporators, to which C-3PO explains his first job was programming binary grain lifters. When they settle on two droids, the R2 unit explodes, showing it has a bad motor. After the exchange, Owen tells Luke to clean up the droids, to which Luke exclaims he was going to Tashi Station to pick up some power couplings. I cannot believe I made the question that long.
I think I was
Pep
first.
was up,
Can I
go ahead.
correct
but
the
I would like to
entire-
go next.
Can I correct the entire statement?
I like to solve the
I'm
puzzle.
obsessed.
All right. I'll do one. It wasn't grain lifters. Rail fans would know it wasn't grain lifters.
Yeah, it was binary load lifters.
Load lifters, yeah.
I know all of them, but
And then I was up second,
ahead,
and
Chuck.
it's not a bad motor.
Yep, it was a
Would know
bad
he didn't have a
motivator.
bad motor.
Yep.
And real fans would know he went to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Yes.
Yes, that was the one I was about to. Yeah. It's a good one.
I think
Are there
that's
any
it,
others?
Uncle Owen?
There's one more. It's kind of
I know I'm on
stupid, but there's
probation.
one more.
Real fans would know R2. The R2 unit explodes, showing it has a bad motor.
Oh wait,
Go for it, Pep.
real fans would know
you.
that's R5.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn it! Yeah.
As soon as you said that, I was
Can't
like,
say it. Like I was right here. Like shit. I should have said that
Okay.
one.
I totally missed that one.
That's a good one. These are great.
Yeah, what are you talking about, David?
I self-doubt all the time.
hey, learn a lesson from Miss Cat. We love you. It's all good.
Right, next statement.
In their search for R2-D2, Luke and C-3PO come across sand people. Luke is attacked by one and fires off a shot before being knocked unconscious. Ben Kenobi appears and creates a sound mimicking a dewback. In the aftermath, they find C-3PO with his left arm missing. Choco.
Real fans would know he was not mimicking a dewback.
That's correct.
Real fans would know that sand people is a slur and they're Tuscan
That's their word.
Just kidding.
I'm sorry, I had to.
Oh shit.
I feel like that left arm is
Yeah, that one feels too
misdirect.
specific to be real. Yeah.
I'm in between two of them, but I can't answer yet.
Real fans would know that Luke doesn't fire off a shot.
That's correct. He doesn't. He just gets knocked unconscious.
Luke.
Love him. I guess real fans. What is there another one?
No, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Great. So the left
not
arm
gonna
missing
say-
thing is real.
Total misdirect.
They took my left arm off and they threw it over there.
See, the misdirect got Kenny. All right, next statement.
When Luke, Obi-Wan, R2, and C-3PO arrive at Mos Eisley Cantina, the bartender insists the droids leave. Luke walks up to the bar and immediately starts getting harassed by Dr. Cornelius Evezan and Moma Nadan, bragging they have the death sentence in 10 systems. Luke replies he'll be careful, and Cornelius yells back that he'd better be. Choco, I saw your name or your hand first.
Real fans would know that was not Moma Nadan.
That's correct. It was Ponda Baba.
Anything else?
Yeah. There is 2 more.
Real fans would know they have the death sentence in 12 systems.
That's correct.
Oh,
Ugh.
that's fun.
Oh, holy! That's a really. That's a really
have
I keep-
the death sentence in 12 systems.
Oh, real fans would know. He doesn't say that he better be.
Yep, he says he'd be dead.
Yeah,
Oh my
you'd be
God.
dead.
Dead.
I love
I
that
don't.
one.
He
I
doesn't
realized
like you.
I raised my hand as soon as I saw one, and then I stopped paying attention. So when I read at the end, I was like, "Oh, that's what it is."
Also, I hope I'm tallying the scores right. I'm trying to remember to put a tick next to people's names.
There's a score?
It's like
Oh dear.
don't worry about it. The points are meaningless, and the scores
Points
don't
don't matter.
matter.
Yeah.
The rules are
Just
made up,
like-
and the points don't matter.
Just like whose line is it anyway?
Yeah.
Although we usually have a prize, but more on that later, because there will be a giveaway soon. Excuse me. Next statement.
Princess Leia is brought before Tarkin as the Death Star orbits Alderaan. She says, "Moff Tarkin, I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board." Tarkin replies, "You don't know how hard I found it signing the order to terminate your life." When Tarkin's plan to destroy Alderaan is revealed, Princess Leia had no choice but to reveal the rebel base on Klaatuin.
So many.
Who
Real
was
fa-
first?
yeah.
I think.
Real,
I think Pep was first.
Pep,
Yeah.
go ahead.
real fans would know is Dantooine.
Yes. And Choco?
Real fans would know that when she was brought before Tarkin, they were not orbiting Alderaan.
That wasn't what I was looking for, but that might have been true. I just said that.
Real fans would know she doesn't say Moff Tarkin.
That's correct. She says Governor
Governor
Tarkin.
Tarkin.
Is there another one?
There's, let me see. What am I looking? Nope. That was it. Those two.
All right. All right. Here's the next statement.
Meanwhile, Obi-Wan is instructing Luke in lightsaber training, and R2 and Chewbacca are playing holo chess with C-3PO advising R2. Han advises never upset a Wookiee or they pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. The remote Luke is training with hits Luke in the arm. Obi-Wan gives Luke a helmet with the face shield down, and Luke proceeds to block 4 shots. Who was first? I think
I saw Nat first.
Real fans would know that R2 and Chewbacca are not playing hollow chess.
That's correct.
The Jarek, right?
Yep, it's called.
Yeah, I was like, I can't remember what the game's
Yeah.
called. I know it's not hollow
Who was
chess.
next? I wasn't.
Choco's next.
Choco.
Yeah.
Real fans would know the remote did not hit Luke in the arm.
That's correct.
Real fans would know he blocks 3 shots.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was also listening to that in my head.
Yeah, me too. When I was verifying my answer, I was like playing that in my head at the same time.
Is that it?
There is one more.
Real fans would know not to upset a Wookiee or rip people's arms out of their sockets when they lose.
You know, that's a good shout, but I didn't plan for that one.
Okay, I was like, I don't know if that was correct. I was just like, how pedantic are we being? I didn't know.
Choco.
I'll throw it out there. Real fans would know that Chewbacca was playing hollow chess with C-3PO.
Yeah.
Wait a second. No, he was playing with R2. I had to think about that for a second.
With C-3PO advising. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real fans would know he gives him the or Luke's already wearing the helmet, or he puts the face shield down, but he gets it without the face shield down, right? Or something?
No, I almost didn't include this. I'm just gonna give it to you because I hate it now. It's a blast shield, not a face shield.
I was looking at that. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It made sense. We knew what you meant.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, but the pedantry, you were right.
Next statement.
During the sale of the droids, that's the older one.
Oh,
Oh,
there we go.
After Luke, Han, and Chewbacca engage the Imperials in the cell block, Han informs Luke that Princess Leia is being held in cell 1138. Han stalls the Imperials on the comm, stating that there is a reactor leak, shoots the console, and yells to Luke that they're going to have troopers incoming. Choco.
I'm trying to figure out how exactly you're wording these, but if the pattern proves true, Han doesn't say that there will be troopers incoming.
That's true. He says, Luke, we're going to have company.
We're gonna have some company. Yeah. Okay.
Real fans would know it's cell block 3A, not cell 1138.
No.
Cell block and cell. Sorry.
You're close, though. Yeah.
Well, I can't reattempt.
Is there only one left?
There's only the one left, yeah. Choco.
Real fans would know that is not the cell.
That's correct. It is 2187.
Oh, that's right.
It just
That's
always
really
struck me that
smart.
it was the same as Finn's number.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
That's
it. That's
right.
the only two.
that's a really good one.
All right.
All right, last one. While in the garbage chute, the walls are closing in as Luke gets his left leg grabbed by a Dianoga. Princess Leia struggles to put debris up to block the walls, and Han says to get ahead of it. Once they are out of danger, Luke tells C-3PO to open the door for 326-3827. Choco.
Real fans would know that Luke was not grabbed as the walls were closing.
That's correct.
Real fans would know Han is holding up the putting up the debris to block the walls, not Leia?
No.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
I know.
No, I'm
Real
They're
fans would
dying.
know, real fans would know that Luke tells R2.
No, he's still talking to C-3PO.
Yeah. He gets really mad at him. I remember that.
3PO! 3PO!
I remember that really clearly. I feel like it's like real fans would know.
I keep reading Dianoga Princess.
It sounds like a great romance novel.
Oh my God.
I need Studio Ghibli to make that.
Yes, please.
With a veil as that.
Real fans would know Luke doesn't tell C-3PO to open door 326387. That feels so specific. That has to be wrong.
That is actually the correct number.
Damn it.
Okay, see, I thought maybe it was that too, because I knew that was the number, but I didn't know if he said that or not.
I tried to throw in specifics that were wrong and right to throw it all around.
Last attempt. Real fans would know Han doesn't say that.
That's correct. He says get on top of it.
Yeah.
Dang it!
I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was real fans would know they're not in the garbage chute; they're in the trash compactor.
Oh my God.
I mean,
That.
They travel
Give
through
this
the
man-
chutes.
Wow. No,
the walls aren't closing
that's
in as they're in the
really,
garbage
that's really
chute.
good.
I'm going to give AJ a point because that was
I was like,
really
I
good.
mean,
Because that
really
also
good.
like that got me for sure.
Yeah, they travel
is
through the chutes
hilarious.
into the pet compactor. That was a
Dang.
good one, AJ. All right.
One thing's for sure, we're all gonna be a lot thinner. That was the only.
3PO!
I definitely need to rewatch A New Hope. That's for sure.
Dave, who won?
Choco.
Oh, that was the last
Choco.
one.
Ow!
Yeah, that was it.
Dang. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of Dyad in the Force, episode 134, Rise of the Red Blade. We'll start with David, moving on up. Just where people can find you and your content, and any final thoughts on the book.
I am Xanatos1138 on all social media, primarily TikTok and Twitch as of late. Just find me there. I do a lot of Star Wars content. Because of the strikes, I'm trying to pivot to more comic book and book stuff just to, show my support of what's going on. But yeah, my thoughts on the book, I really enjoyed it. I finished it just a few hours ago. I really like Iskat's character, and I kind of want to see more of her and maybe Riva in like the same story together. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Like Iskat just like passes her by.
Hmm.
What up?
I'm sorry, I can only hear the Star Wars TSA. Look at these two lesbians.
Bless.
And Nat.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, once again, you can find me on Twitter under NKNAPPER, and then TikTok NMKNAPP. Again, I talk about all kinds of pop culture things, Star Wars included. Again, supporting the strike, so not talking about any struck company TV or movie shows right now. But yeah, I guess like the only other plug I will give is I have a housing co-op I have started this year, which I'm like super excited and really jazzed about. So if you're in the DC area and interested in doing like fun artsy co-op shit, hit me up. And you can find us on TikTok at Baldwin House DC. And other than that, the book, I think, you know, I'll have to read it one or two more times to really commit to this, but I think that it's definitely like a top tier, top 5 book for me. And I'm not a dark side girly, so I really love this book. Really felt very connected to Iscat, so
Awesome.
loved it.
And AJ.
I'm AJ. I am 16-bit Star Killer everywhere. Lately, I am on Twitch 5 nights a week. That's where I am at most of the time. My TikTok has shifted with the strike. I've been making like wrestling content because I'm a big WWE fan. So that's what I've been. Hell yeah! That's what I've been focusing on right now.
Let me talk to you.
Yeah. When it comes to this book, I think the last thing I want to say, I loved it. I especially love the way that Star Wars books reign supreme at having the interconnected canon. The way that this book literally has the dialogue from Mace Windu during the knighting ceremony is word for word what it is in Brotherhood. The ending scene is exactly the 2 issues of the Darth Vader comics that Iscat is in. All of the dialogue is unchanged, and it leads to this wonderful cohesive feeling in the entirety of Star Wars canon that I wish we would get embraced more in film, television, and animation. Is
Agreed.
that same level of interconnectedness with the rest of the universe that we get in books like this. That really kind of set this apart for me. I'm vamping because I'm trying to think if I had one more thing to say or not. I thought I did, and it appears... I was just going to say, when I do stream on Twitch almost every night, I play different stuff. That's what I was going to mention, was that I play different stuff pretty much every night, from like Red Dead Redemption, Resident Evil, older games like Final Fantasy, story-driven stuff, like Choco said earlier. And I do silly voices when I play the really old games, so there you go.
Awesome. And just to kind of make an announcement, you can follow _B Dazzler _ gang on TikTok. They are actually making some shirts for SAG-AFTRA and WGA, and all the proceeds will be donated to the unions. She said she was going to give me a graphic for it. Excuse me. But I didn't get it. But just go follow that account on TikTok and get some shirts and support the unions. And Choco.
I mean, what he said. Follow all these amazing people doing good stuff. It's. I know AJ didn't mention it, but he is also living in a low budget Kratos cosplay. I'm sorry.
Boy. I literally address my son like that now. I text him the other day, and the first word in the text was "boy."
No, but everyone in the chat, thank you guys for hanging out this long. I know we didn't interact with the chat as much as normal. It was just a really goddamn good discussion. But yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely. Just like Choco said. As AJ said, the books reign supreme in interconnectedness in the universe. The books reign supreme for me in inciting such discourse, inciting such conversation, because they're so much deeper, and they provide so much more perspective. I mean, we literally have books called From a Certain Point of View of Other Point of Views, and so it provides us with so much more to look at from so many different angles. But we will also be playing a multiplayer campaign of Baldur's Gate 3 with our good friend Cal. So and that'll be later on after this, after we end here. We're gonna get some food first, but you can follow that at twitch.tv/Calforrer, Forrer. And that'll do it. Unless Choco has any final words, that's the end. On to the next one.
For Light and for Life.
We are all the Dyad.
And please buy Baldur's Gate, everyone. The studio did something important. They did it really well. They deserve to be rewarded. To let them know that we want more of this type of content. But yeah, love y'all. May the force be with you.
Also, we're ignoring Young.